that really bugs the end user if you don't address it is this one about adding something in a pop-up, right? So let's say we're creating a new patient and we filled out all this information, all the way down through. Oh, here's that alarm we were warned about that. So just imagine I've taken time to fill all this out and I come down here and I go to enter. Okay. Oh, I see they're in a medical trial. Oh, it's not here. Right? Darn. Okay. Well, what do I do? How do I get it into this drop-down list so that I don't have to lose all the work I've done filling out all the rest of the form? Okay. Because if I, go off somewhere else and come back, I'll have to start from scratch and re-enter all the information over again, which would be very, very frustrating to my end user, right? So that's something it comes up all the time. How do we quickly add a new option in a drop-down list? Say a new doctor has joined the practice. You could do the same type of thing for that and so on and so forth. Okay, so how can we do that? Well, there's a nice simple way to do it with a pop-up modal, okay? All right, so let's get that in place. Now, one of the tricks to this is a common piece that we can reuse wherever we have to do the similar functionality, a little bit of JavaScript, right? So again, come to www.root, the JS for JavaScript, okay? Right here, now I've already added it, okay? It's just right in the copy paste file, but to save some time, I just put it in place. What is this doing, really? Is giving us a simple function we can call refresh drop-down list, refresh DDL, right? There's some parameters. Okay, we pass in the ID of the DDL itself, okay, as identified up here, right? The select we're going to refresh. The URI, in other words, the controller in action we need to call to get the select list as JSON, okay? Then there's some options. Show no data message, right? Basically, if we want to give a message, at the top that there's no data, right? There's no data returned, and so on and so forth, okay? The next pair is even more useful. Boolean indicating if we want to add a default prompt at the top, okay? So we can have a default text. So that's where, you might want to, you're getting fresh data from the database, but you need to add maybe select a whatever, right? At the top of the drop-down list. So that's how you can easily do that. The last one is just for fun, fade in and out, true or false. It just gives a visual effect of having the UI element itself kind of fade away and back again in a very short period of time, but it draws the eye to it so they can see that it's been refreshed, right? Okay, so we're just using basically AJAX requests here, a JSON request, right, to go and get the default value and get the data. And once we get the data, we append it to the options of the drop-down list and so on and so forth, right? If we have no matching data, we show that, right? And away we go. And the little fade in is just a visual effect. All right, so feel free to spend more time. If you have any questions on how that functions, I'll be happy to sit down with you and talk about it. But in the meantime, it's the kind of thing that you can just pick up and easily figure it out or just start using it. It's entirely up to you. Okay, I can close all these for now. Those are all my views from earlier, right? So let's go to the patient controller because that's where we're maintaining. We're talking about that drop-down list of medical trials on the patient, right? So coming into controller and our patient controller, I'm going to add Control MO, shrink everything down. I'm going to add a new public method here, but it is a different kind we haven't used before. Okay, we've done similar kind of things, but not actually specifically used this. It's a JSON result, right? So we're just going to say, hey, you come here, you ask for this. What we're going to do is we're going to take data and we're going to serialize it as JSON. Well, it's very easy for me to write this. Why? Because I'm just calling something else that we did earlier. Remember, we added this code. We call it inside of our populate drop-down lists, right? That in populate drop-down lists, I call separately my doctor select list, my medical trial select list, right? So this is the one where I can pass in a selected ID if I want, right? And then I get a list of all the medical trials ordered by trial name, right? And I can have one selected, and that just gives me the select list. So what am I doing here? I'm just taking that select list, converting it to JSON, and returning it as a JSON result. Okay. All right. So now we need to add a partial view that we're going to use in our pop-up modal, right? Now I could, as with all partial views, I could put it in shared, right? Because it eventually looks there, but it always first looks in the corresponding controller. right? So because this is going to be done from the patient controller, I'm going to add my partial view under patient instead, and that way it will actually find it first without having to go to the shared one. So let me get down here to patient. I'm going to right click. We're going to add a partial view. So I just select a view, right? I'm going to call it my medical trial create partial view. So underscore medical trial create as a partial view, and we add it. So I could basically take the normal create form, right, for a medical trial and just trim it down because I don't need, I don't need to have the unwanted headings, the links, right? I want to make changes to the form ASP action, ASP controller, and so on. Let me just show you the code and we'll kind of walk through it together, right? So the main thing, see, it still has the model for medical trial. It has the basic create form here, right? But the controller, it is medical trial, it is create, right? But we're going to give it an ID as well. This is the create medical trial form, right? And then that'll be useful later on in JavaScript as well, okay? The other thing we're going to change here is the submit button. Notice we give it an ID, submit medical trial create, right? So that's all important because we're going to grab that information later on as well. Okay, the other thing that's really different here, right? We're used to having a span to show our model errors. Well, we're going to do that a little differently because remember, this is all going to be processed client side. When we go and ask for information from the server, we're going to get possibly errors given back, right? And that'll be added to our error list here. So that's going to be just this div. Class is still text danger, okay? And it's going to have validation summary errors. And I'm going to have an unordered list, right? Where we actually list all the errors that are being reported. Okay. So that's instead of having a validation summary. All right. Now we're going to make this partial view available in a Bootstrap modal. Okay. So we're going to add that next. So next we need the modal pop-up for our medical trial create to be hosted inside, right? So we'll add yet one more partial view here. Okay. It's going to be entitled add medical trial modal. And I'll use the underscore as the first character as normal, right? Create as a partial view. Okay. So the code here, okay, notice that you have an ID of add medical trial, right? It's a modal. In the header, we have the modal title, add new medical trial. We have a button there for closing or dismissing it. And down here in the modal body, we're going to load the partial view, or medical trial create. Right? Now, as we do so, we have to provide it with an actual model, a medical trial. So that's why we're newing up a new medical trial here to pass it to the partial view. And away we go. Okay, now we're going to want to call this both when we're creating a patient and editing a patient, right? So let's come to the edit and the create views here. And so above the form, I'll just add, okay, the partial. Now it won't be visible yet until it's called upon, right? Do it right above the form. Well, it could be anywhere as long as it's not inside the form because it contains a form. You can't have a form inside a form or that would cause problems, right? So to trigger the modal to display, what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit more to the actual drop-down list itself, right? So let's come down and find that. It doesn't matter really, create or edit, which one I do first. Okay, here is our medical trial, right? Notice we have the option of none because it is a nullable foreign key. Okay. All right. So it's a form group. We have our label here for the medical trial ID. But what we're going to do, instead of just having the select straight there, I'm going to actually create an input group, right? We used input groups once before, and it's a nice way. Now, although the select will still be there, I'm just rearranging where it actually sits, right? So we defined the input group. So in the input group prepend, that's where I'm going to put my button. This is the button I click to open the modal. Okay. Notice it's a toggle for the modal. The target is my add medical trial modal, right? So then when we click that button, that just gives me a nice big plus symbol there. Then we can pop up our modal, right? Then we have basically the exact same select that we had before. And here's our validation span as well. But that all gets put together as an input group. So it looks like a single solitary control, right? All combined together. Okay. So the last thing we need is some JavaScript at the bottom. We already have our one here for the standard on all of them. But what I'm going to add first of all is we need our refresh drop-down list script, right? Because we do need to refresh the script. So we'll add that one next. And then in addition, my sort of customized little bit of script here that will handle all the rest of the functionality that I need to add. Okay. All right. So when we click the button to get our medical trial created, okay, notice we prevent default. Clear errors, what that is inside the modal, remember we had that special div where we would list any errors that existed, right? Then we grab the form itself, the create form, right? We can check if it's valid, and then we do an AJAX request to post up, okay, to the action defined in the form itself. Okay, we take the data and we serialize it as JSON, and we send it up, right? If we get success back, all we really have to do is come to our modal and hide it, right? If there's an error, that's where most of this code comes from, okay, right? We can check, okay, we prepare our error message, and we check the actual status, okay, of our XML HTTP request. If we get a case 401, right, then, you know, it's a warning that you must be logged in first. So, hey, we haven't introduced logged ins yet, right? But that's a very good thing that we're planning ahead, and this will actually still function when we get our security system in place, and you're not allowed to do that because you're not logged in. Okay, maybe you're logged in, but you're not authorized for the action. Well, that would be a different error code here, right? And then our default, okay, is a message coming from the modal state errors. So I'm going to be using a delimiter as I put all the errors together, so we can split it on that and then just give a whole list of errors. You know, maybe like, oh, you didn't supply this value or that value, or this was out of range or whatever. Okay, all the typical errors that come from things like our data annotations and so on. Okay. All right. If we don't get any errors, then of course we check if there are any elements with some content. If not, we're going to provide a default feedback message, right? Unable to complete operation, okay? Or a different one if a different one is provided for us, right? So we put all of our errors and feedback comments and everything else into our unordered list here, okay? And display it in our validation summary. And that's really what that is all about, just putting that all together. Now down here's a couple more things, okay? If our medical trial modal on hide, okay, well, we want to make sure that we reset the form so that if they click it again, it doesn't come up with the same data, because it would still be there. Remember, we've just hidden it, right? So when you do a reset, so we reset the form, clear it out, ready to add yet a new one. Maybe they decided they want to add 2 or 3 in a row, right? Also, we clear errors, and then we return to the selected value, right? Whatever it was before, right? We want to put it back again afterwards, and then we refresh the drop-down list itself with the new data. Okay, and that's our clear errors. Remember, we called that from earlier on. That just goes in all the errors that were there, because the modal itself just stays there, right? Until we clear things, it will just do the same thing for us there. It'll just clear all the errors out. All right. What about a DB update exception? Well, the client's ready. It's ready to handle every kind of error you can think of, but we have to do some work on the server side as well to make it really function. So, you know what, to make this a little bit more interesting example, I decided we should probably do a change, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to actually add a unique constraint on the medical trial. Maybe you went ahead and did that, but we didn't do it officially earlier on. So I'm going to come in here to data. We'll go to our medical office context, and I'm going to add in the Fluent API a new constraint that the medical trial must be unique, right? So This is as good a spot as any, right? We'll add a unique index to the medical trial name so that we can't have two medical trials with the same name, right? And that gives us more error feedback that we can demonstrate that we can provide from the server, even though we're using this in a pop-up modal, right? You know what? For even more fun, I'm going to add a little bit of extra complexity. This is kind of out of order, but I want to get all this in place first. In my copy-paste files out of order. What I'm going to do is come down to the models, and I'm going to, I know this is silly, but it's just so I can show a variety of different errors. What if this implemented iValidatable object? And we had some simple things here. I know it's kind of silly, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is we're going to add some exceptions if certain things are true, okay? You know the old saying about you'd never ever say out loud the word Macbeth, right? Okay, but you're never supposed to say that name of the Scottish play. You just call it the Scottish play, right? So if the medical trial name contains that, then we're going to give a validation result back. You should never enter the name of the Scottish play, right? Same thing if the name is exactly 7 characters, okay? This is stupid, but it's just so I can show you getting more and more different kinds of errors. Cannot have a trial name with a length of 7. All right, so we've got all that in place. So now we've added a lot more different kinds of, I just want to give examples of different kinds of feedback that you might possibly get from the server, from the controller, that we want to handle in our client side, right? Okay, so with that in place as well, we do need to still go back. I have to make a new migration. Okay, so what I did is I just added a new migration. I just grabbed my common commands, just did this one in my NuGet package manager, as you see here, and that successfully added a new migration. So we're ready. I'll just make sure that we actually apply the migrations, right? Coming down here, let's just go to the bottom of program.cs. Yeah, I want to make sure database set to true and we're using migrations. Okay, all right, so that's good. Now, we have that change made to the system, but we should properly handle, okay, and the create and edit post actions for the medical trial controller. That's the one we just added recently, right, for our new lookup controller, our medical trial. We just come down here and in the create, yep, okay, I already have it here. Unique constraint failed. Okay, unable to save changes. You can't have a duplicate medical trial name. Just to save some time, I put this in place, right? Same thing in the edit right here, okay? If we edit and create a duplicate that way. So that's in place. One other thing, right? Because we want to give feedback if it's an AJAX request, okay, we want to give all this error information. Now, it's one thing, it's great adding it into the model state this way, right? But that is only useful when we're going back to a normal MVC view, right? But when we're just sending data by an AJAX request down in JSON format, we need to do something else. So actually I do have the code in place. Now it's really just a create that we're concerned about here in terms of our client side. So I've already got it in place. So after the try catch is finished, decide if we need to send validation errors directly to the client, right? So basically, if the model state is not valid, and this tells us basically that it was a AJAX request, an XML HTTP request. If that's the case, right, then we're going to build a message with all the validation errors in it, right? So basically, I just prepare an empty string, okay, and then for each validation error, right, each model state error, and then go into the actual error itself, I'll just pull the error messages out, and notice what I'm using. This is just my favorite, right, my favorite delimiter, because it's so rarely used in my experience in any real text manipulation kind of stuff. I like to use the pipe character, right, that vertical line. It's just a way to delimit all the different error messages there are, right? So then I return a bad request, okay, which will give me a 400 error message, right? And then my string containing all the actual error messages themselves, right? And that takes care of it. So we return that instead of going back to the view itself. Okay. So I think that should be good. I think let's just run it now. And let's give it a test. Okay, so yeah, I'll just, well, no, doesn't matter. Edit or create doesn't make any difference here. So I come in, I'm editing this person. Oh, and I realize, oh, there's a new medical trial. It's not on the list yet. Ah, ha, 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 ha. There you go. Best laid plans. Sure enough, I interrupted myself in the middle of updating. So I finished the create, but I hadn't finished the edit view, right? So I have to change here, use the input group, right, to get the plus sign there and then add the JavaScript as well. So I think I can do a hot reload. We'll soon see if that worked or not here when we come to it. All right, now let me just go back and I'll try editing again. There we go. Now I see my little plus sign, so I can click that, make my new trial, and create. Notice it faded out and back in, but there it is right in the drop-down list. Yay, success, right? I can add another one. My new trial. Oh. Aha, there we go. Unable to save changes. You cannot have duplicate medical trial names. Oh, can't have duplicate. You can't have duplicate. Have that in there twice. Oh, sorry. I should fix that. But anyway, you get the idea, right? So there we are. So let me just X out of there. And let me do one more. Let's get Macbeth in there. Yeah. I don't trust myself to remember how to spell it. You should never enter the name of the Scottish play. You cannot have a trial name with a length of 7. Oh, see, it's both. We're getting both of those error messages coming through, right? Now, if I change it so it's not Macbeth, but I put it still as 7 characters, then I just have the one message about it being 7 and 1. Anyway, I'm just trying to show you that we're getting our DB update exceptions. We're getting IValidatable object exceptions. And of course, even locally here, I can just get my, you cannot leave it blank. That comes from the data annotation. So all different types of our error messages are all being handled. All right. Very good. Sorry, I just noticed one little thing. I thought I'd fixed it already. Just as a little change going from one version of Bootstrap to another. So here this gets the X in the upper right corner the way I wanted it to. So I'll just update my copy paste file. Tiny little change there. Sorry about that. Just actually it's even simplified it a little bit even more. Okay.